guys, welcome back to my miniature things. My name is Saeed. As you guys know, I did go to the Sherry's doll show a few weekends ago and I met this wonderful young lady that watches me here on YouTube. I will put her somewhere here on the screen just so you guys know who she is because I completely forgot her name. I know, I'm horrible. But I'm just gonna guess that her name is Kamaya because it says Kamaya's family. And you guys, I know that I totally could have messaged her and asked her what her name was, but I wanted this video to be a surprise, okay? But she was telling me that she was from out of town and while she was in town, her dolls had nowhere to sleep. So she suggested that I made a doll room that you could transport with you when you're on the go. And I was like, what an amazing idea. I had a few ideas on how to make this possible, but I decided on the idea of making the room within a box so that we can easily move it around. So without further ado, let's start building a portable room for our dolls. So let's start off by cutting a piece of foam board down to 16 inches by 20 inches. And you guys, please don't mind the boo-boo in my cutting mat. I had a mental breakdown. But all is okay now. I ordered a new one, so it should be here during the filming of this video. And I may have forgot to mention that I am going on vacation this week, so this project comes at the perfect time. I'm gonna use two different contact papers for this project, one for the inside of our box and the other one for the outside. And I use them to cover my 16 by 20 inch piece. I put the wood grain contact paper on one side and the other contact paper I put on the other side. You guys, I don't really know what to call this. It kind of just looks like, I don't know, a painted wall, so like wallpaper, but yeah, whatever this is. I then made a couple cutouts on my piece. They measure 8 inches tall by 3 inches wide, 6 inches from the bottom and 1 inch from the top, and the same thing goes for this side. These are going to be our windows to our room, and I was going to put like a huge painting right here in the middle, but you guys, I just feel like I want more windows, so I think I'm going to put another window right here in the middle. There we go, like this, because the view where I'm going, you guys, is spectacular, so we need a lot of windows. For the glass in our window, let's cut a few pieces of plexiglass a little bit larger than our window, about 1/4 inch on each side. As you can see, I have an overlap going all the way around, and we are going to place this piece on the back. I'm just showing you on here just because it's a lot easier to see, but you're going to place this piece on the back. And as you guys know, I usually stick my plexiglass with duct tape, but this time I used hot glue, and that's because we are going to be finishing the outside of this because this is the outside of our box. Hello. And we don't want to see a whole bunch of duct tape all over the place. Duh. Now let's cut a few 1/4 inch strips of foam board and place them in the middle of our window, and then cut a few shorter 1/4 inch strips and place them within our window like this. Now let's cut a few 1/2 inch strips of foam board and use them to make a border going around our window, 2 on the sides and then 2 on the top. I then repeated the same thing for my other 2 windows, finishing up the inside of my windows. And now we're gonna flip our piece over to the outside and repeat all of those steps all over again so that we cover up wherever we see glue. So I cut my 1/2 inch strips to frame the window. I placed one on either side and then one on the top, but I'm not gonna place one at the bottom because we're gonna make a little planter box that goes underneath this window. So let's cut a piece of foam board down to 1.5 inches by 4 inches and another piece that measures 3/4 of an inch by 1.5 inches. And I place this piece on the side of the 4-inch piece on the side that measures 1.5 inches. For the bottom of our planter box, we're gonna use a piece that measures 3/4 inches by 3.5 inches and place it in the back of our piece down in the corner. Place a 3/4 by 1.5 inch piece on the other side. To finish it off, we add a piece that measures 4 inches by 1.5 inches right on the back. And now I can stuff it full of flowers that I found at my local dollar store, Dollar Tree to be exact, and place it right under my window. Actually, wait. Before you place it under your window, make sure to finish up your 1/4 inch strips. Let me go do that first and then I'll place this under my window. Amazing! I finished off the other 2 windows and you guys, it looks so cute. And I was thinking, what if we use our 2 molds to dress up the planters a little bit? All we have to do is just fill it up with hot glue. Let it dry and now we can just peel it off. And I'm actually gonna go spray paint this black. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I spray painted it, but while the paint is drying, I wanted to see what it would look like if we added more flowers around our windows. Like this. What do you guys think? Yay or nay? Well, it better be yay because I already glued it on. My hot glue mold is now dried. Well, kinda. But now we can place her right on the middle of this planter. Actually, what if we do it like this? That's cuter. I also made a couple smaller ones for the planters on the sides. And you guys, I am obsessed. This looks so good. And look, when you turn it around, God, this thing is so big. When you turn it around, you can see the flowers from the inside. Obsessed! But I think that completes this wall of our box and I love it. Now let's make the pieces that go on the sides. Let's cut a piece of foam board down to 6.5 by 16 inches. Measure over 4 inches and start lightly scoring your foam board all the way down. I keep going about 2 or 3 times, making sure not to go all the way through the back so that we can use this piece as a hinge for our side piece. I'm now going to flip my piece over onto the side that I didn't cut all the way through and add a piece of duct tape just to reinforce it and make it a lot stronger. Next up, let's cover our piece in our wood grain contact paper, but I'm not just gonna cover the whole thing just like this in one piece. I'm gonna place my piece on the table and fold one side upwards like this. Take a piece of my contact paper and place it right up against the edge, right where that corner meets. Press it really nice and tight so it's flush with this side. Then for the other side, we're just going to repeat with the foam board folded like this. I'm going to take another piece of contact paper and place it right up against the edge, making sure that it's flush with this side. I finished covering it, and now I have a piece that can bend and the contact paper won't wrinkle. Let's now join it to the wall that we made earlier, but I'm going to flip it like this and join the 4-inch side to the side of the wall. For the floor, I cut a piece that measures 4 inches by 19.5 inches, and I cover both sides in gray contact paper, making sure to roll one of my edges, and then I place it down here in the corner at the bottom like this. So you should have something that looks like this. And then I made another one of my sidewall hinge thingies, and I'm just gonna place this one over here on this side. And to finish off this half of our box, I cut a piece that measures 4.25 inches by 20 inches, and I covered it all the way around on every single corner, every single side with this black contact paper that I found on Amazon. And I'm just gonna place it right on the top. Finishing off the first half of our box, the other half is gonna be split into 2 halves. So let's build the right half first. So let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 10 inches by 16 inches. And I cover both sides of my contact paper just like we did for the first wall. One side with my wood grain contact paper and the other side with my wallpaper contact paper. And as you can see, I went ahead and I drew some lines on here. I basically drew like a rectangle. We are going to make some double doors on this wall, and the measurements are 1.5 inches from either side, 1/2 inch from the bottom, and 2 inches from the top, giving me a rectangle that measures 7 inches wide by 13.5 inches tall. I then cut it out, add a piece of plexiglass in the back, just like we did for the windows, trim it with 1/2 inch strips of foam board going all around the edges, just like we did for the window. And I did want to make these doors working doors, but I thought it would make the piece a little bit too flimsy, and also we would have to worry about the doors flying open like when we're transporting it. So yeah, we're gonna do it like this. Next, I'm gonna cut a 1/2 inch strip down to 13.5 inches, and I'm just gonna place it right up against the edge on the glass. Cut 2 more 1/2 inch strips, but these only measure 2.5 inches, and I place one on the top, on the glass, on the side, and then one at the bottom. Add another 1/2 inch strip that measures 13.5 inches to the side of that, and then repeat the same steps to make the frame for the door right next to it. I then added in my 1/4 inch strips and my flowers on the outside to match my windows. And then for my door handles, I spray painted a couple of my glue molds gold, and I just placed them on my door. And then for the outside, I spray painted a couple of them black and used it as my handles for the outside. Now let's attach this piece to the rest of our box. Let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 2.5 inches by 16 inches, and I covered one of the sides in my wood grain contact paper, and I'm just gonna place it right here on the side of this piece, making sure that the wood grain contact paper faces outward. And you guys, I actually just realized that I made a boo-boo with my calculations. When I cut this piece down here, the bottom border, I should have made it 1/4 inch and placed it 1/4 inch away from the edge, so that when I place my floor in there, it goes in nice and flush. But because we did make that 1/2 inch, I did have to go in and remove 1/4 inch from the bottom. But it's okay, because now my floor that measures 9.5 inches by 2.5 inches, covered on both sides and rolled on one side with my gray contact paper, fits perfectly in there. Let's now take our piece that we just made and attach it to our little flap right here, just like this. Let's now cut a piece that measures 2.75 inches by 10 inches and cover it all the way around in our black contact paper and use it to finish off the top. For the other half of our box, I made another sidewall. It measures 10 inches wide by 16 inches tall, and I covered both sides in my contact papers. I then added a window over to the side and decorated it with my flowers. It measures 10 inches tall by 3 inches wide, 1.5 inches from this side and 4 inches from the bottom. Let's now add our side piece just like we did for the other side, making sure that the wood grade contact paper faces outwards. Add the floor in just like we did for the other side. And now we can attach it to this little piece right here, just like we did for the other side. I added added in the black piece on the top, and you see, I told you guys this view was gonna be amazing. No, I'm totally kidding. We're gonna have to wait till the end of the video to see the view because I don't leave for my trip for another 2 days. But when I do go on my trip, I get to have this really cool folding room that I can take with me so that my dolls have a place to sleep. And even though I am dying to put a little handle on the top so that when I carry it around, it looks like a little briefcase, I just don't think that this foam board here on the top, like where I would attach the handle, this part can hold the entire weight of this entire room with everything that we're going to put in here. I'm pretty sure it'll end up breaking off that piece. I also contemplated putting the strap on the side. I'm like running it along the side, having it go over the top and then attaching it to the other side. But you guys, I just feel like it's gonna rip my contact paper and just ruin the whole thing. So I'm just gonna skip the handle idea for now. And the great thing about this space, you guys, is that it's a blank room. So you can basically turn this into whatever you want. Like we can make this into a living room, a dining room, maybe a kitchen. Well, maybe not a kitchen, but... The whole point of this project is for my dolls to have a place to sleep when I travel, so we're gonna turn this one into a bedroom. So let's start building our bedroom furniture. Let's start with the nightstand. But first, let's welcome our new cutting mat. She is gorgeous, but I don't know how long I'm gonna be able to keep it looking like this. For our side table, I start by cutting a piece that measures 4 by 4, and I covered it all the way around in my black contact paper, including the edges, and then I cut another piece that measures 4 inches by 2.5 inches, and I only cover one side of this piece, but I join them on the side that measures 4 inches. Add another piece that measures 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches to the back down in the corner. Then we're gonna add another 2.5 by 4 inch piece on the other side, cut a piece of foam board down to 3 inches by 4.5 inches, and I'm gonna use this piece of craft paper that I found at Michael's to cover it. Use 1/4 inch strips of gold craft paper to trim my edges, and I place it on the top of the piece that we just made to make the top of my side table. Let's now cut 3 1-inch strips of foam board. They measure 3 inches wide, and I covered them all the way around in my black contact paper, and I'm just going to start placing these on the front of my piece to make some drawers for our side table. And use some glue molds that I spray painted gold to make some drawer handles. For the legs, I'm going to use these wooden beads that I found at my local dollar store, spray paint them gold, and glue them to the bottom of our side table. I repeat to make another one. And you guys, I am obsessed. I love the black and gold. Well, anything gold, you know I'm obsessed with. But now let's make some lamps that go on the top of our side tables. So let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 1.5 inches by 2.5 inches. And as you can see, I covered the top of it in my black contact paper, but the sides of it, I covered it in my gold craft paper. I then repeated the same thing for another piece that measures 3.25 inches by 1.5 inches. And I placed the both of them on top of each other in the middle. I then cut a 1/4 inch wooden dowel down to 4.25 inches and covered it in gold craft paper all the way around. I then used my drill to make a tiny little hole at the bottom of my wooden dowel, just large enough for this little nail to be able to fit in there. I then use my nail to poke a hole into the piece that we just made about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, and I make sure that the nail goes all the way through. I then pull the nail back out, flip the piece around, and put the nail through the back of it into that hole that we just made. I'm now going to put a little bit of glue on the tip of my nail and then use this hole that we made earlier with the drill to put that nail in there and just push it all the way down till it meets the foam board. And what that does is just ensures that the wooden dowel and the foam board has a nice sturdy connection, because if we didn't put that there, we just use hot glue to stick it, it would probably break off. Next, let's use the smallest one out of this pack of brass rings that I found at my local dollar store and place it onto our lamp like this. But again, our ring is not going to have good enough contact with this back piece to keep it from breaking off. So I take a straight pin and I just bend it around the sides of the ring so that I get the exact measurement of the curve. Trim off the head of the pin, and you should be left with a U-shaped pin hanging from your ring, and we're just going to use the pointy part of our pin to stick it into our foam board. Like this, and my pliers did dent my gold craft paper right there, but it's okay. I'm now going to take a little bit of glue and put it on my wooden dowel right here and place my ring on it just to hold it in place and keep it from falling forward. For the lampshade, I'm going to use this cover that I got off of a can of spray paint, but I spray painted it white so it matches our room better, and now I can place it on the top. I added a little bead on the top, and you guys, this came out so good. I love it. I went ahead and made a second one, and now I'm obsessed. This looks so high class and rich and elegant and just like fancy. Definitely some of my favorite lamps I've ever made. But since this is a bedroom, you guys, we need to make an actual bed. Hello. But first, let's add in this floor so my dolls aren't walking around on a scuffed up table that's covered in glue. And I'm basically just gonna lay my floor down, lift up my box a little bit, and slide it under all the way back. Like this. That looks so much better. It matches really nicely with our room. We used this one in our mall video. This video right here, if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. I got the contact paper on Amazon. But now that we have our floor down, now we can start building our bed. Let's start with this thingy. I really don't know what this is supposed to be. I think I've actually used it on this channel before, and I didn't know what it was back then, and I still don't know. So... But we're going to glue this to one of the beads that we use for the legs for the side tables. This is actually going to be the leg for our bed, and I just feel like there's not really enough contact there for me to be able to just glue it together and just throw it on the bed and expect it to stay. So what I'm going to do is put some hot glue in both of the holes, put them together, and then I'm going to take this little steel rod that I have and push it all the way through down to the bottom, making sure that it doesn't poke all the way through. Make sure it goes nice and flush like that, so that when the glue dries, we get a nice sturdy leg for our bed. And this part right here, we're actually going to put inside the bed, so it's going to be even sturdier. I made 4 of them and I spray painted them gold. So while that's drying, let's put the bed frame together. Let's cut a piece of foam board down to 8.5 by 14.5. Cut another piece that measures 2 inches by 8.5. Cover it in black contact paper, and I'm just going to place it right over here on this piece on the side that measures 8.5. I repeat the same thing for the other side, and as you guys can notice, my black contact paper is facing outward. Cut another piece that measures 2 inches by 15 inches, and this one I cover in my black contact paper, making sure to roll both of the sides, and I place it over here on this side. I repeat the same thing for the other side, and now it's time to add the legs. Let me go see if they're dried. Okay, they appear to be mostly dry, so let's see if we can install them. You guys, I am just so impatient when it comes to waiting for spray paint to dry. But we're gonna flip our piece over like this, and as you can see, I made little dots on all 4 of my corners. They measure about 1 inch away from either side. And I'm just gonna use the metal rod that's sticking out of our bed legs. Bed legs? That just sounds weird, but we're gonna use the metal rod that's sticking out of this thing and stick it right into this little mark that we made. After I've stuck it all the way through and I've made the hole, I'm gonna go cover this entire piece right here in glue and then stick it back in so that we get a better adhesion. I then repeat it for all 4 of my corners, giving us some legs for our bed. Let's now flip it over this way and add some extra glue around our metal rods that we have sticking out in here, just to give it a little bit more stability. And speaking of stability, let's add a couple support pieces in the middle before we place the last piece on the top. These 2 pieces actually measure 1 3/4 by 8 inches, and I'm just gonna place them right about here. For the top, I cut a piece that measures 9 inches by 15 inches, and I cover this one all the way around in my black contact paper, and then I just place it on the top. I added a glue mold to the front of it, and now we have a bed that matches the rest of our room. Well, not really. We still need a mattress, so let's make one. Let's start with a piece of foam board that measures 9 inches by 16 inches. And then I cut a double layer of batting a little bit larger than my foam board. And now I'm gonna start rolling the edges of my batting onto the back of my foam board. When I'm done rolling all 4 sides and my piece looks like this, I'm gonna take my scissors and go in and just trim off the excess. And I do it for all 4 of my sides. Let's now flip it over and cut a piece of fabric that's also a little bit larger than our piece and place it on the top. And now we are gonna roll this over onto the back of our piece, just like we did for the batting. Except for when you get to the corner, this time you're not gonna use your scissors to cut it off. You're gonna put a little bit of glue in here and then pull it tight like this. Hold on, let me see if I can do it. It's a lot easier to do this off camera. Okay. Pull it tight like this, like that. It's also a lot easier to do when the glue is in there. So I put the glue in there and now I'm just going to pull it down to where I want it to be. But you want kind of like this nice triangle that I'm forming right here. And if you're a neat freak and this bothers you, like it's just too untidy, you can just cut a piece of black craft paper and stick it over all of the untidiness, giving us a nice soft mattress for our dolls to sleep on. The white with the black looks so good, but I want black and gold sheets, you guys, to match the rest of the room. So let's make some black and gold sheets. I have this fabric that my sister gave me a while ago, and I think it would be perfect for the sheets for our bed. My only problem is that this is literally all I have left of it. You can see up here, there's a pretty wide hem. I think this used to be a curtain or something, but I think I like that for the top of the sheet. And then for the sides, I really wanted to roll hem it just to make it look a little bit cleaner. But you guys, I don't think I have enough fabric. I think the sheets are going to become way too short if we roll hem it. It's not going to be able to lay flat on the sides. Also, it's going to become really stiff, again, preventing it from laying flat on the side. So what I'm going to do is basically cut it down to size. It measures 14 inches down by 15.5 inches across. And I ran a zigzag stitch all around the ends to prevent it from fraying. And you guys, I really don't think it looks that bad. And it really doesn't. It looks amazing, actually. But now we need some pillows, so let's make some. Let's cut 2 pieces of fabric down to 3 inches by 5 inches. And yes, it hasn't even been 24 hours yet, and I've already messed up my mat. But let's put both of our pieces of fabric together. And if you guys were sewing with a piece of fabric that had like a right side and a wrong side, the both right sides will be facing together, but I don't have to worry about that because both of my sides are the same. And I sewed it all the way around. Starting here, I went all the way around like this, and then I stopped here. So I started here and I stopped here, and I left a space in the middle to be able to flip it over. But first, let's take our scissors and just snip off the corners so that when we use our opening to flip it over, we can use the pointy end of our scissors to go through that opening and make these corners nice and sharp. If we didn't trim off our excess on our corners when we flipped it over, our corners would be really bulky. Let's now use some fluff to stuff our pillow through our opening. And then to close it up, I just add a little bit of glue on the inside and I press it together. I repeated to make another one, and now our dolls have a soft place to put their hard plastic heads. I also made a couple decorative pillows just to amp it up a bit. And don't forget this little fluffy one. She's so cute. She completes our bed. And I think it looks amazing, but I want to work on that little corner over there. I want to put a little chair like under that window. So yeah, let's make a chair now. Let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 2 inches by 4.5 inches, and I covered it all the way around in my black contact paper. And another piece that measures 2 by 2, and again, this one is covered in my contact paper, but it doesn't have to be all the way around. I'm just gonna join it on the side that measures 2 inches. Add another piece that measures 2 inches by 4 inches down in the back in the corner, and another 2 by 2 inch piece on the other side. And to close it off, I cut a piece that measures 2 inches by 4.5 inches, covered it all the way around in my black contact paper, and I just place it right over here. For the top of it, I cut a piece that measures 2.5 inches by 4 inches, and I covered it in this fur fabric using the same method as we used to cover the mattress, and I'm just gonna place this right here on the top. For the legs, I'm gonna use these acorn dowel caps that I found at Home Depot. I did not find this at Home Depot. I don't know why I said that. I found it in Hobby Lobby. But I paint them gold and add them to the bottom of our chair. Let's also add a little gold molding to the front so it matches the rest of our room. And now we can place her right under our window. And you guys, that looks so cute. I literally want to turn like Barbie size and go sit on that chair and just like stare out the window. So adorable. But now I want to make a little wardrobe that goes next to the chair so the adults have a place to hang their clothes. So let's make one. Let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 4 inches by 12 inches. And I covered it in the same craft paper that we use on the side tables. And then I cut another piece that measures 2.5 inches by 12 inches. And this one I make sure to cover on both sides, making sure to roll one of my sides in my black contact paper. And I'm just going to place it on this piece on the side that measures 12 inches. For the bottom, we're going to cut a piece that measures 2.25 inches by 4 inches and place it down here at the corner. And I know it's not covered, but don't worry, you're not going to see it. Then let's add another piece that measures 1.25 inches by 4 inches on the top of that. This is going to serve as a spacer for our next piece. And again, this one doesn't have to be covered because you're not going to see it. Next up, we have a piece that measures 1.5 inches by 4 inches, and we're going to place that one in the front like this. The next step is when our little spacer right here is going to come into play. I cut another piece that measures 2.25 inches by 4 inches, and I covered one side and rolled one of the edges. The other side doesn't have to be covered because you're not going to see it, but we are going to use this spacer back here and this piece up front to make sure that this piece is nice and straight. I then use my screwdriver to poke a hole about 2.5 inches down from the top so that we can insert a wooden dowel so our dolls can hang their clothes. And as you can see, I didn't go all the way through to the other side, but before we put the wooden dowel in there, let's clean up the hole with this gold grommet. Now I can place my wooden dowel that I spray painted gold right into the grommet, and then place this little piece that I covered on both sides and roll the edge that measures 2 inches by 4 inches right above it to create a little shelf. And to close it off, I cut another piece that measures 2.25 inches by 12 inches, cover it on both sides with my contact paper, making sure to roll one of the sides. And then I also added in my little grommet right there, and I'm just going to place it right here on the side. Add a 4.5 by 2.5 inch piece that's covered all the way around to the top. And then for the doors, I cut 2 pieces that measure 2 inches by 10.25 inches. And as you can see, again, you guys, I covered it all the way around in my black contact paper. Now to install them, we're going to use some pins. So let's go to the bottom of one of them and go over probably about 1/4 inch away from the edge and stick the pin straight through the foam board, leaving about this much sticking out. And then I'm going to take my wire cutters and just trim off the edge of the pin. And then I stick the remaining of it into the bottom edge of my closet. Let's now repeat the same thing for the top. We're going to take our pin and I passed it through the top up here, making sure that it goes through the door right there, and then I just put it all the way through, trim off the excess, and then use the dull side of my cutters to push the rest of the pin into the door so that you don't scratch yourself. I repeated for the other side, and now we have a closet with doors that actually open and close. So cute. But let's see if we can make it even cuter. Let's cut a piece of foam board down to 1 inch by 3 inch, and I covered it and rolled my sides in my black contact paper, and I'm just gonna place this right down here to create a little drawer. Add some of our glue moldings to the drawer and the doors to create some handles for our closet. Now let's add in our spray painted wooden balls to create some legs. And I also think I'm gonna add one of my acrylic mirrors over here on the back of this door so the adults have somewhere they can see themselves while they're getting ready. And I'm just gonna place her right over here in the corner. And you guys, this whole thing came out so amazingly. The only thing that's left to do is for me to pack all of this up, go on vacation, and film this with the actual view in the background. So let's grab our closet and stuff our pillows in there so they're not flailing around all over the box. I'm also going to fold up the bed sheet and probably put it into the closet. Since we already have our pillows in there, I'm not sure if it's gonna fit. Actually, it does! Yay! Let's fold our bed upwards, fold up the side, this one too, and pack your bags, girls, because we're going on vacation and we're taking the whole house with us. I added in the view, and this is what I got. Are you kidding me? That view! Literally the most beautiful place ever, and that room came out so perfect, I'm obsessed. Now, Kamaya. I hope that you made it all the way to the end of this video because the real surprise isn't that I decided to use your idea for this video. The real surprise is that I made that room especially for you. So now you don't have to worry about where your dolls are gonna sleep when you travel. I am most likely gonna be attending the next Sherry's Doll Show, and if you are too, I can give it to you then, and if not, I can just mail it to you. But you guys already know the drill. Please let me know your favorite thing that we built today. Also, let me know what you think we should build next week. Leave your suggestions down in the comment section below. And if you like this video, please give it a huge thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.